when I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use, which is a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
Hey, fans, what do you say? It is Monday. Can you believe it? Monday, May 4. I hope your weekend was a good one. You're ready to jump into all the news of the week here on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We got lots and lots of news to talk about today. You're going to want to give us a call for sure at 866-55-PRESS. You're going to want to send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. News, yes, indeed, from Baltimore since we last saw you, where the state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, declared that the death of Freddie Gray on April 19 was in fact a homicide at the hands of 6 police officers, all of whom have been charged with serious charges, one of them, in fact, charged with second-degree murder. News from New Jersey, where 2 aides to Governor Chris Christie have been indicted for deliberately planning to shut down the George Washington Bridge, and one other top aide has pleaded guilty. Chris Christie's presidential plans and hopes for 2016 suddenly went up in smoke. News from Las Vegas, where Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, I don't know how you pronounce that name. At any rate, they gave us one of the most boring fights in history Saturday night, but who cares? They don't care. Certainly, they'll split a $300 million take. News from Louisville, Kentucky, where the Kentucky Derby held again on Saturday. I didn't know anything about it, but there it was. An American Pharaoh walks off with a win. And news on 2016, where Bernie Sanders is out there. 2 big events this weekend. Today, Carly Fiorina and Ben Carson announce, and tomorrow, Mike Huckabee announces. Oh, my God, can you keep track of all the Republican candidates? It's getting tough. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us on this Monday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
All personnel aware of the proper protection equipment. This includes all personnel identified as staff, students, role players, VIPs, and support staff. Face, eyes, throat, and chronic infection is mandatory and should be worn at all times by personnel directly involved in or near the scenario. Always check your mask prior to use to ensure there are no cracks and the mask is in safe working condition.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. The water.
This is like some kind of chemical agent.
Yeah.
Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiends yelling at me.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Pull them out. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Just get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place.
Okay.
So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team.
Uh-huh.
So they regenerated the idea of
I see.
activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
Uh-huh. Okay. And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else.
Yeah.
That we might be faced with,
Uh-huh.
and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
We have a new baby princess, but she doesn't have a name. Let's have a contest. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? Here we go. It is Monday, May 4. Can you believe it? We're already into the month of May. Here it is, the Bill Press Show. On this Monday, May 4, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, as always, here with you on your local progressive talk radio station, here with you nationwide on Free Speech TV as well, and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. What a big day, man. There's news everywhere you turn today. We've got more news out of Baltimore. We've got more news out of New Jersey, where Chris Christie's presidential hopes are going up in smoke. We've got news from Washington, D.C. here, where the president looks like doesn't have the votes for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and news from across the pond, yes, where Baby George, Prince George, has a little baby sister. Someday she will have a name. We've got it all covered for you. Bring it to you and tell you what's going on. You, in your turn, tell us what you think about what's going on. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number, of course. And you can also send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. We'd love to hear from you. You make the show with your comments. The team here together today, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, hello.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, happy Monday.
Hey, good to see you guys again. Jamie Benson is in today screening calls for us. You reach him and us at 866-55-PRESS. Jamie's the filter. You got to get through him to get on the air.
The Iron Curtain.
The Iron Curtain.
He's tough.
Yeah.
Yep. Tough test here, so try it out. And, of course, we thank our videographer, Cyprian Bolding, for being on the scene and making us look good on Free Speech TV to the extent that he can with the material he's got to work with on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV. And I'm back from a quick trip to California. Went out there Thursday after the show, and I got to tell you, first of all, nothing. You know how it is when I'm away for a day, nothing happens, right?
Yeah, right.
No news happens. The only thing happened was that 6 police officers in Baltimore were charged for the death of Freddie Gray. Chris Christie's plans went up in smoke with the indictments for the George Washington Bridge closing. We have a new princess born in England. There's a winner of the Kentucky Derby, and then the great big championship fights. So nothing happened while I was away. No.
Quiet little weekend.
I mean, the reason I go away for every once in a while for a day is just to generate some news that we can then talk about for the following week. That's what happens every time, isn't it? But California, it was tough being there now with these new restrictions. Water restrictions, of course. Yeah. At the hotel, we had to you had to shower with a friend.
Uh-oh.
You're not allowed to take showers by yourself.
Boy.
Yeah.
It's a buddy system.
Right. So when you got your room, then they told you, okay, now you're showering with a person in this room down the hall, right? So you had to synchronize. This is tough work. And, go to sit down for lunch or dinner in the restaurant. Mm-mm. To bring you a glass of water? Mm-mm. No. Just straight gin or straight vodka.
No ice.
So that's one way to beat the drought.
No. Sure. I know. No.
Smart move.
It was a sacrifice being in Beverly Hills. There we go. So Scott Bland is going to be joining us today from the National Journal, as he does. Kyle Kondik from the University of Virginia will be here also as well to talk politics. Big news with 3 more Republicans jumping in, 2 today and 1 tomorrow. Find all about that. And Avery Friedman, our legal beagle, will take a look at the indictments in Baltimore and what the chances are of getting a conviction there. We'll get right into the news from Baltimore, but first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. If you were a fan of Breaking Bad, then no doubt you know of the restaurant Los Pollos Hermanos. Mm-hmm. Which is not a real restaurant. It's one that was made up for the show. However, Vince Gilligan, the creator, did a Reddit AMA at the end of last week, and he said that there is actually talk of a Los Pollos Hermanos becoming a real restaurant. They might turn it into a real chain. Time will tell.
Yeah.
If it's actually going to happen. But I'd go check it out, sure.
I'd check it out. But, the memory of that show is not going to last forever.
No, I mean people will know about the show, but it's also like when you consider what was going on inside of the restaurant on the TV show, you might not want to go.
Yeah, that's true too.
In real life. Some sad news to report. Tiger Woods and his girlfriend Lindsey Vonn announced that they are breaking up.
No.
They were in a relationship for about 3 years, and she took to Facebook to say, quote, after nearly 3 years together, Tiger and I have mutually decided to end our relationship. So sorry to hear that about those two.
No, I mean, I don't know.
Poor Tiger Woods.
The past.
Yes, but the signs look good. She was following him around at the tournaments.
Like,
I know.
It's not like he has a lot of secrets out there, but anyway. And do you know which city in America is the most polluted? Do you want to guess, Bill? Highest ozone pollution in America.
It's in Texas. That's all. That's close as I can come.
I hate to burst your bubble here, but the top 5 are all in California.
No.
Including number 1. Los Angeles, Long Beach is number 1.
No.
Bakersfield is number 3. Fresno, number 4. Sacramento, number 5.
No.
Number 6 is Houston, Texas. Number 7 is Dallas. So Texas does get in there, but yeah.
That's pretty shocking.
6 out of the top
Are they talking
10.
air pollution or water pollution?
Ozone pollution.
Smog.
Yeah.
They do have some pretty sunsets, though.
Yeah, and they've done a pretty good job of cleaning up the smog in L.A. Boy, I remember when it was a lot worse.
I'm sure it was, but
yeah, I don't believe that. I don't buy that. No, as a Californian,
Fair enough.
I resent it, and I refuse to accept it, and I will fight it. We'll go to court. All right, you got it, Peter. Thank you. Yes, indeed. I got to tell you, it happened right after our show on Friday. Again, I was in Los Angeles. I got to tell you, about to meet a friend for breakfast, and just about 10 or 15 minutes before we were to meet up, he called me at my hotel and said, "Hey, I was about to leave the house. I just saw that the state attorney from Maryland is walking out to give a news conference. I've got to watch this." And I said, "Man, so do I." Turned it on, saw the entire thing. Marilyn Mosby, the state attorney, Maryland state attorney, she's elected to that position for Baltimore City, stepping out in front of the courthouse there, in front of the TV cameras, and with the news that she had completed her investigation. And on top of her investigation, she had the report from the Baltimore Police Department, which had arrived the day before. She said, which confirmed everything that they had found in their independent investigation. I'm sure you saw it. And she said the death of Freddie Gray was declared a homicide, and the 6 officers involved in his arrest and death would all be charged with a variety of offenses, crimes, including, in one case, second-degree murder. Here is Marilyn Mosby making announcing the finding about homicide.
The findings of our comprehensive, thorough, and independent investigation, coupled with the medical examiner's determination that Mr. Gray's death was a homicide, which we received today, has led us to believe that we have probable cause to file criminal charges.
Now, so, yeah, you can hear the crowd there. Homicide, filing criminal charges. We also learned from her that the police had made an unscheduled stop, a second stop, which we didn't know about. The first, they threw Freddie Gray into the back of the van. We saw that video, unshackled, uncuffed, which is against the rules of the police department. And then they went, I don't know how long, but then they stopped in front of a little store. And she talks about, pulled him out, and then she tells what happened then. Now, at this is the second time he's thrown back into the van, taken out, thrown back in. And here's she describes what the officers did at that point.
Place flex cuffs on his wrists, place leg shackles on his ankles, and completed required paperwork. Officer Miller, Officer Nero, and Lieutenant Rice then loaded Mr. Gray back into the wagon, placing him on his stomach, head first onto the floor of the wagon. Once again, Mr. Gray was not secured by a seatbelt in the wagon.
And so this is what they call the rough ride, right? This has been, I just learned this, nothing new, right? Common practice in the police, throw them in the back of the van, and then, they take fast turns and, and stop and start and everything just to have them, they're unshackled, right? And just being thrown around. You can imagine that this idea that he might have tried to hurt himself committing suicide. He had handcuffs on and shackles. He's on his face down, all bound in the back of that van and not secured in any way. And so she points out there's no doubt that is what killed Freddie Gray.
The manner of death, deemed a homicide by the Maryland State Medical Examiner, is believed to be the result of a fatal injury that occurred while Mr. Gray was unrestrained by a seatbelt in the custody of the Baltimore Police Department wagon.
And the most serious charges filed against the driver Officer Caesar Goodson.
Officer Caesar Goodson is being charged with second-degree depraved heart murder, involuntary manslaughter, second-degree negligent assault, manslaughter by vehicle by means of gross negligence, manslaughter by vehicle by means of criminal negligence, misconduct in office for failure to secure a prisoner, failure to render aid.
I got to tell you, man, and she laid it out there. It's been a long time since I have seen any public official, state level or federal level or city level, step up to the plate with such conviction, with such knowledge, with such poise and such confidence and doing her job. Man, I think she is a rock star. And you know what? She was just what Baltimore needed, just what the country needed, and just what all of us needed to see, to give us some hope that we can, in Baltimore, finally resolve and begin to resolve this problem of this tension in so many communities between the community and the police department because of police brutality and excessive use of force, which you've seen over and over and over again. And right away, and this is what I want to get your take on it. First of all, Marilyn Mosby, what do you think of her? 866-55-PRESS. But right away, the critics piled on. I heard it all over the place. Well, who is she? She's too young to be doing this kind of thing. She has an obvious conflict of interest because her husband is on the city council. She is anti-cop. We needed an independent investigation. We can't have the state do the investigation, and mostly that she acted too fast. I mean, how could she do this so quickly? It was a rush to judgment. All of which I think is absolute nonsense. Every single one of them. And she answered several of them. On the point of a special investigator, she said, wait, special investigator, there's no accountability with a special investigator. I was elected to do my job. So I'm going to do my job. If you don't like it, you throw me out. You have a special, like a Ken Starr thing, there's no accountability. She was great on that. Yeah. Conflict of interest? She pointed out, she's a 5-generation family of law enforcement. Her father was a cop. Her mother was a cop all the way back. Her grandfather founded the first black police officers union up in Massachusetts. So she put that down. And as far as acted so fast, I mean, Freddie Gray, the death occurred on April 19. She spoke on May 1.
Yeah.
So there was 2 weeks, and they started their independent investigation right away. And everything that they found was confirmed by the police department report. When they finally got and gave her that report, confirmed everything she had found. So why hold on to it?
Yeah.
She had the facts. She put it out there. The warrants were issued. The officers were indicted. Mm-hmm. And now they'll go to trial.
I think if we've learned anything through the past couple of instances where police have killed unarmed citizens, it's that you got to get it all out there. You got to get it all out in the light of day. You got to just put your cards on the table. These guys, they're going to get arrested. You're going to get fired. We're going to get body cams. This is how it should be done. Move quickly and get it all out.
Absolutely. And the city again needed somebody in charge. Certainly, we had no confidence in the mayor or the governor from what we saw of them. And we've got the history of what happened with Trayvon Martin, and look how long that took, right? And then George off. Look at Ferguson, right? Look how long that took, and Darren Wilson gets off. Look at Staten Island, how long that took, and then those cops, nothing happened to those cops. And we needed somebody to take charge, and he did. Boy, I salute her. I think she's did absolutely the right thing in every way. Justice delayed is justice denied in too many cases. And the other thing is, finally, get to your calls, 866-55-PRESS. Want to hear from you. Did she act too quickly? Marilyn Mosby, the state attorney up in Baltimore, she said to the young people, I have heard your call. No justice, no peace. So she said, I am giving you justice today. That's my job. Now you give this community peace. I thought that was such a powerful message, right? She said, I'll do my job, you do your job, and let's come together on this. Man, I got to tell you, Marilyn Mosby for president, 866-55-PRESS. Your take. Let's talk about it Monday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley, Santa Clara County, is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and with us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see, and you have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water.
We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the Jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the Jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law. So we could smoke dope all day in the open. The dope dealers ain't scared because they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the Jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 27 minutes after the hour, and wouldn't you know, right now, we got the monitors up. What is Fox News doing? Fox News is running every single person they can find to say every negative thing they can think of about Marilyn Mosby. That she's got a big conflict of interest because her husband's on the city council. You know, she answered that the other day, too. She said, look, my job is to enforce the laws. His job is to make the laws. There's no conflict here. Right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's this politics of personal destruction. They're going to go out and, you watch, try to destroy her rather than face the facts, right? This is another death of an unarmed young black man unnecessarily. This is another murder of an unarmed young black man by police officers. Nikki in Los Angeles. What do you say, Nikki?
Hi, I think she did a great job. I mean, everything was done in a timely manner and a very professional. She got all the facts straight before she spoke, and she did a great job. I hope she runs for president.
Yeah. Well, a little bit before she does that, I guess she's got a big trial she's got to win first, Nikki. But I got to say, absolutely, she had the facts. She delivered the facts. She had obviously done her work. She was serious about this from the very beginning. Got on it right away, and she delivered the goods. And I think more than anybody else, she has restored calm to the city of Baltimore. More calls coming up. 866-55-PRESS.
This Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, that guy Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I could just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together.
What you gonna do when the temperature's low? Love our children too.
But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other,
love our children too.
helping each other out,
Then I sat at the
living
banker's
together,
desk. I gotta get something
living
off my
together.
chest. I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The waters rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Monday, May 4, indeed, it is the Bill Press Show, brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers, good men and women of the AFT, Teachers of America, making a difference in the classrooms of America every day. Of course, they are under President Randy Weingarten, and you can find out more about their good work at aft.org. Again, we are talking about Marilyn Mosby, the state attorney from Maryland for the city of Baltimore, coming out Friday in a very dramatic news conference announcing that they had concluded the death of Freddie Gray at the hands of police officers was a homicide. It was murder, and 6 officers have been charged. 3 black officers, 3 white officers, 5 men, 1 woman, who now will be on trial for these charges. And, of course, right away, the critics started piling on Marilyn Mosby for a whole variety of attacks. And while we've been in this break, the Fox News is reporting that the police union in Baltimore, they are coming out in defense of their officers and demanding that a special prosecutor be appointed to replace Marilyn Mosby because for all these other reasons, they don't think she should be the one to investigate. And the latest charge is, so what I like to do is go through the criticisms of just, again, one at a time, Peter, with her, about her, and respond to them. First, the idea that she is anti-law enforcement, okay? This, because she's a woman, I guess, because she's young, because she's black or whatever, she is anti-law enforcement. At her little news conference, Marilyn Mosby was asked that question, and she, I thought, knocked it out of the park.
I come from 5 generations of law enforcement. My father was an officer. My mother was an officer. Several of my aunts and uncles. My recently departed and beloved grandfather was one of the founding members of the first black police organization in Massachusetts.
I think
All
that
right,
answers.
next.
Yeah, I think
Shut
that
that down.
I think that answers that question, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How about the fact again? Well, you have a conflict of interest because your husband is an elected official. And she answered that too. She said, look, we're both elected officials. We are both public servants. We have different jobs. My job is to enforce the law. His job is to make the law. And, again, end of story. Totally. He doesn't interfere with her criminal investigation. She doesn't interfere with his job on the city council in terms of passing or approving or voting for or voting against measures that are in front of the city council. So that one falls. This idea of the other two that really I think easily fall too. First, that like the police department, police union is calling for a special prosecutor. She was asked that, and again, I thought she answered it pretty effectively. With a special prosecutor, there is no accountability, and you don't necessarily get a better result. We elect these. So she was elected to do this job. Here's a big case right in front of her. And why shouldn't she do her job?
Yeah.
That's what we elected her for.
That's right.
The idea of calling a special prosecutor who is not responsible, not accountable to the voters is crazy. This woman, she does a good job. She doesn't do a good job. Voters decide at the next election, keep her or throw her out. So this idea of a special prosecutor, I think, is crazy. We found out with Ken Starr.
Yeah.
Part of the problem with special prosecutors. They can go wild, and again, they answer to nobody. And then finally, the other charges, and the one I think is that I hear most of all, and is also the least credible, is that she acted too soon. I mean, you know what I want to ask is, okay, how long should she have waited? Yeah, how long is appropriate? If she had waited a month or 2 months, 3 months, then some people would have said, why'd she wait so damn long, right? I mean, you can't, these critics are just out to find something wrong.
If you listen to the criticism of what was going on in Baltimore, you listen to the people who were upset about what was going on in Baltimore, everybody always came back to the same thing. It's been X amount of days since this happened, and we've gotten
nothing.
Right. They had plenty of time.
Again, he was killed on April 19. She gave her news conference. She completed her investigation on April 30, gave her news conference on May 1. But the police report was in. Her investigation was complete. She had that whole group of investigators in back of her. Their investigation was complete. And the police department investigation was complete, right? The city, the country needed some resolution. They needed some action. They needed something to happen that they could believe in. They needed to see somebody in charge taking this seriously, and she is the one who filled the bill. Yeah. No doubt about it. And again, after the months of delays we saw down with Trayvon Martin in Florida, the months we saw with no action in Ferguson, and then the same thing up in Staten Island. Thank God there was somebody in charge in Baltimore. Yeah. 866-55-PRESS out in Huntington Beach, California. What do you say, Andy?
Good morning, Bill. I think one other area that we need to discuss is the coroner's report is what stated the death was from a homicide. And that is significant findings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as far as Fox News goes, we all know that they're not a news channel. And whatever they state, I'm 99.9% against.
Well, I also remember that they made George Zimmerman a hero. Remember that Sean Hannity went down and interviewed him, and they were playing him as the victim in that case. And I think they're going to do the same thing here with the 6 police officers.
Yeah.
You can almost write the script, right, Andy, that they're going to come up with.
The smog from Long Beach is so bad I can barely breathe right now.
Is that right,
Bill?
No, I'm just kidding.
If he's in Huntington Beach, well, I think, Andy, the times I've been to Huntington Beach, it's been pretty beautiful down there. Yeah, indeed. So I think, and yesterday I tweeted this out. I hope some of you saw that and were able to watch. It was interesting. So I did Media Buzz with Howie Kurtz on Fox News. Believe it or not, they let me in the studio.
Amazing. Wow.
Yes, at Fox News, and I like doing that show. Howie Kurtz is a good host, and we were looking at the media coverage of the Baltimore whole scene before, during the riots, and afterward. And it was interesting. So I was on with Amy Holmes and David, I can't pronounce his last name, who's a media critic for the Baltimore Sun.
Zurwick.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, good for you. And Amy Holmes said this thing about, she acted too fast. It was justice. She rushed to judgment on this whole thing. And David Zurwick from the Baltimore Sun said, I jumped in and said, no, people ought to be applauding her because she did such a great job. And then David came in and he said, let me tell you, and he more than anyone knows the city and in Baltimore. And he said, absolutely, this is what the city needed. They needed that strong voice that they could believe in. And so, he thought she did an outstanding job.
Yeah. She was tough. She was direct, right to the point, and very clear communication. No BS.
I should mention one other charge I saw on Fox is now they're saying that there's another conflict of interest because the attorney for the Freddie Gray's family made a campaign contribution to her campaign when she was running for state attorney. I mean, give me a freaking break, right? They really think that she wrote that report because she got a campaign contribution from some attorney who was not representing the Freddie Gray family at that time. I mean, yeah, it's shame on them. Marilyn Mosby, what do you think? 866-55-PRESS out in Palm Springs, California. Hello, Chandler.
Hi, Bill. Listen, also the union made a contribution to her. She pointed out that the union made a contribution.
Oh, is that right? Oh, I didn't know that. That's good
but
to
wait
know.
A minute.
Yeah.
But wait, my point also was let us not forget. She pointed out 4 times that they arrested him unlawfully.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
That's a really important point. The courage to say he was arrested unlawfully.
Chandler, I'm so glad you made that point. I should have done it myself because that was remarkable. That there was no reason to arrest him, and they found him with that knife, which was not an illegal knife. Right? It was not a switchblade.
It was a little pen knife, a little fold-up pen knife, like we use for nail file. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Now that was the most important finding, the first and most important finding of all, that there was no reason to arrest him, arrested illegally, and then thrown into the back of that van. And God knows what happened. Well, we know what happened. The man lost his life at the hands of the police, and we'll find out. We're going to talk to Avery Friedman in the next hour about how strong a case she's got, and it's not going to be a slam dunk case, right? And these officers will have good attorneys, and they will have a chance to defend themselves in court, and then we'll see what happens. But at least for now, justice has been done, and Marilyn Mosby gets the credit. We'll call to Scott Bland from the National Journal Hotline coming up next here on the Bill Press Show. So stay right with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Right now, big banking, software, pharmaceutical, and tobacco corporations are lobbying governments from 12 countries to negotiate the dirtiest deal you've never heard of. There's a reason you haven't heard of the TPP or Trans-Pacific Partnership. There are some major corporations and government officials that don't want you to know what's in the deal. For one, our food safety standards, environmental protections, and local labor laws could all be threatened under the TPP. We could all be forced to pay significantly more for the medicines we need, and you could be fined or even sent to jail for downloading copyrighted content on the internet. How will they know if you do it? Because your internet service providers could be required to watch your online activity. But that's not the scariest part. The TPP gives corporations the power to sue our government in secret tribunals over any law or regulation they claim affects their expected future profits. Don't believe it? It's already happening. Recently, after our government said an American pharma corporation's drug price-raising patents were not legit, the firm sued Canadian taxpayers for a staggering $500 million. And a U.S. fracking company sued us when the Quebec government put a moratorium on shale gas development to study its impacts. These deals will stop us from making our own common sense laws for fear of lawsuits. Thankfully, not everyone is willing to sign on the dotted line just yet. In fact, most government officials still have no idea what they're even signing on to, for good reason. In the U.S., Democrats and Republicans alike are uniting to oppose a fast tracking of the TPP, demanding open debates and negotiations instead. Elected officials in Canada and everywhere should be doing this, and it's our job to make sure they start showing some backbone. Here's the deal. Without a strong public outcry, politicians will only hear the concerns of multinational corporations. And once the TPP is signed, it's here forever. There's no expiration date and no separation clause. This dirty deal has been deliberately branded as a free trade agreement. It is anything but free for people like you and me. And it's not really about trade. It could cost us our internet freedom, labor rights, access to affordable medicine, the safety of our food, and protections that keep our water and air clean. Nobody wants to be struck with a backroom deal we don't want and never voted for. Find out more, speak up, and spread the word.
on your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 13 minutes now before the top of the hour, Monday, May 4. Good to have you with us. We've been talking Baltimore and the stunning announcement by State Attorney Marilyn Mosby on Friday that charges would be filed against the 6 officers involved in the illegal arrest and the murder of Freddie Gray. But on the political front, there's been some movement as well. A big week this week with at least 3 that we know of new presidential candidates jumping into the race for 2016. Scott Bland is the editor-in-chief of the national journal Hotline and joins us for his Monday visit to the Bill Press Show. Hello, Scott. Always good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
Let me first start by one who is not jumping in and may never now. How badly do the indictments in the George Washington bridge closures hurt Chris?
Well, it depends on how you judge it. In terms of the kind of donor world and the political world, these indictments were essentially already baked in for Christie, right? Everyone was kind of expecting something along those lines.
Right?
Right. No, that's absolutely true. They hadn't happened yet, but everyone was kind of expecting in particular these particular people to end up in trouble. And Christie's own team was very quick to say on Friday that the indictments and the statement by the U.S. attorney that they weren't expecting to indict anyone else related to the George Washington Bridge closing was a good sign for the governor, because it showed, as they've said all along, that he had no knowledge or involvement. Now that's a little bit of a rosy outlook on it.
No, that's their spin, but of course people buy it.
Right, and of course, so the other side of this coin is the voter reaction, and this is a story that's been kind of percolating behind the surface for Christie, but it's still it's still something that maybe hasn't been on the front burner for voters. Over the last year or so, which now they're going to have a fresh excuse to think about and bring up and question again. Whether or not this keeps Christie from running for president, I honestly don't know. But but in terms of what it should do for his donor support and the type of things he would need to get a campaign off the ground, I don't know what effect this is actually going to have on that.
Now, meanwhile, there's so many candidates, there are not even enough days to go around so each candidate can have a day of his or her own to announce. Like today, we've got 2, Carly Fiorina and Ben Carson, both announcing today, although Ben Carson kind of let it slip yesterday. So are they, either one of them, considered serious?
That's right. They're both getting started today with official bids, and neither is in the top tier of Republican challengers, to be sure. Both could potentially affect the race in their own way. Carson's going to be jumping into what's becoming a very crowded, and what's expected to become an even more crowded side of the bracket, if you will. In the Iowa caucuses for Republicans, he's going to be competing for that evangelical vote that makes up a majority of the caucus goers there. And the question there is, isn't so much as Carson going to win. We've seen his standing in the polls slip a little bit, even over the course of the year already, as more established politicians have jumped into the race. The real question is, to what extent might he siphon support from, and who is he going to be kind of in direct competition with on that side of the bracket? There's Ted Cruz, there's Scott Walker,
and tomorrow there's Mike Huckabee.
Exactly, and there's a number of major players competing for that kind of grassroots vote in Iowa right now, and so the extent to which you have even just one more candidate. One who's very popular, I might add, and Ben Carson, dividing that up could be very important in the ultimate result.
And on the Democratic side, there will be no coronation. because Bernie Sanders is in. And Bernie had a good weekend. I ran into his communications director yesterday who had just come back from him with Manchester, New Hampshire, and said, of course, that's his neighboring state, but had a very good first event up there.
Sure, and it was very interesting to see also that the Team Sanders announced raising, I believe it was $1.5 million online in their first 24 hours in the race, which is better than any of the kind of top tier Republicans who have jumped in already have done online in that same time period.
And I saw the average donation was like just over $43.
Is that right? Yeah. Which is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great.
Online stuff. Yeah, absolutely. No, as Bernie said, I was a little disappointed. He said, "Don't underestimate me." I was hoping he would have said, "Don't misunderestimate me." But he's going. And Hillary, to her credit, welcomed him into the campaign, which I thought was a smart move for her. So it's gone. I can't wait for the first debate. I think it's going to be. There may be some other people on stage, but at least the two of them will make for a very lively debate. Getting more and more interesting. Every week we talk, Scott, is more and more interesting. So we'll keep it going. Thanks so much for today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, talk to you again. Scott Bland at the National Journal Hotline, nationaljournal.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
is the Bill Press Show.
In the next hour, Kyle Kondik is going to join us from the University of Virginia Center for Politics, and Avery Friedman, our legal analyst, on chances of getting a conviction in Baltimore. Peter?
Yeah, I've mentioned a couple of times as we do the show that David Letterman's final show is coming up soon.
Yeah.
So he has a lot of special guests coming on. Last week he had Michelle Obama. On Thursday night was Michelle Obama, and tonight his guest is going to be,
of course,
Barack Obama.
Barack.
It will be Obama's final visit to David Letterman. He's not going to come back.
A big story in the style section of the New York Times yesterday about David Letterman and what he might be doing afterwards. When's the final?
May 20. So
May 20.
Like 2 weeks.
Can you imagine?
No.
All the years that he's been doing that
No,
show?
I grew up being a Letterman guy.
Yeah, and so
really bummed.
What's he going to? He's not sure what he's going to do with his time.
He'll disappear. That's what he'll do.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. All right, back for hour number 2 coming up on the Bill Press Show.
This
Monday, May 4th.
is the Bill Press Show.
Hey fans, what do you say? It is Monday. Can you believe it? Monday, May 4. I hope your weekend was a good one. You're ready to jump into all the news of the week here on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We got lots and lots of news to talk about today. You're going to want to give us a call for sure at 866-55-PRESS. You're going to want to send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. News, yes, indeed, from Baltimore since we last saw you, where the state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, declared that the death of Freddie Gray on April 19 was in fact a homicide at the hands of 6 police officers, all of whom have been charged with serious charges, one of them, in fact, charged with second-degree murder. News from New Jersey, where 2 aides to Governor Chris Christie have been indicted for deliberately planning to shut down the George Washington Bridge, and one other top aide has pleaded guilty. Chris Christie's presidential plans and hopes for 2016 suddenly went up in smoke. News from Las Vegas, where Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, I don't know how you pronounce that name. At any rate, they gave us one of the most boring fights in history Saturday night, but who cares? They don't care. Certainly, they'll split a $300 million take. News from Louisville, Kentucky, where the Kentucky Derby held again on Saturday. I didn't know anything about it, but there it was. An American Pharaoh walks off with a win. And news on 2016, where Bernie Sanders is out there. 2 big events this weekend. Today, Carly Fiorina and Ben Carson announce, and tomorrow, Mike Huckabee announces. Oh, my God, can you keep track of all the Republican candidates? It's getting tough. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us on this Monday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving. And try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old. And I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Yes, the Maryland state attorney says the 6 officers arrested Freddie Gray illegally and then killed him. Charges filed. What a shocker and what a relief to see a public official do her job so quickly and so well. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? It is Monday, May 4. Good to see you today. Welcome to the Bill Press Show. Here we are. Look at your radio. We're there with you on your local progressive talk radio station. Look at your TV. We're there with you on Free Speech TV, both nationwide, of course. And good to have you with us and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Yes, indeed. We've talked a lot about Baltimore. We'll talk about it a little bit more at the half hour with Avery Friedman, CNN's legal analyst, and the Bill Press Show legal analyst as well. And a lot of political news to talk about this hour as well, with Ben Carson announcing today, Carly Fiorina announcing today, Mike Huckabee announcing tomorrow, and Bernie Sanders just in last Thursday. The field is getting crowded. We love it. And we'll talk a lot of politics with Kyle Kondik from the University of Virginia Center for Politics, working with Larry Sabato down there. Kyle, it's nice to see you. Thanks for coming in again.
Thanks for having me.
And you guys are up with already with a big map for 2016, which has just been released, and we'll talk about that here today when we jump into it. You join our team, of course, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hello there.
Hey, good morning.
Everything good?
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Jamie Benson is on the phones today, screening your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding, videographer on the job with the lights on, cameras on, action, thanks to Cyprian on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. So a lot of political news over the weekend, a lot of sports news, too.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even realize until it was over that the Kentucky Derby was being held on Saturday.
Sure was.
Usually I just watch, that 2 minutes, that's all you got to watch, is that, right? The last,
Sure, yeah.
the 2 minutes of the
What about the
race.
6 hours of pregame or
Well,
whatever?
that's of the red carpet,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
The drinking of the mint juleps.
But they do kind of get excited, you must admit, over a horse race. Here is the final call.
Dortmund is down at the rail as they come into the final furlong. American Pharoah, firing line not done yet. And these two come into the final 16th. It's American Pharoah in front. Firing line. Dortmund is third. Frosted is fourth. Coming to the finish. American Pharoah and Victor Espinosa have won the Kentucky Derby.
I just can't imagine getting so excited about anything.
My favorite part of the whole thing was that American Pharaoh's name is misspelled. Like Pharaoh's misspelled,
It
and I
is?
think I forget exactly what it was.
Deliberately?
Yeah, I
hope so.
guess they asked the owners of the horse asked people to name the horse, or they had a competition, and the name submitted American Pharaoh or whatever, but they misspelled Pharaoh. I don't know, it was very odd,
And they didn't correct it?
Yeah, they just went with
You
it.
can fix that, I think.
I would think so.
You
yeah.
would think so.
Right.
I mean, that would give the horse a complex.
Well,
It's working for him.
Yeah, but there's going to be a lot of people who, are putting together the results over the years, and they say, why is it misspelled? It's going to come up in the spell check, and they're going to correct it, and it's actually going to be wrong when they fix it. I don't know.
I guess I talked to a friend yesterday. Had coffee with a friend yesterday who won $140 on that race, so betting on America. He didn't care it was misspelled.
Yeah, there you go.
Got his money, right? Indeed. So again, Kyle Kondik here with us for the first half hour. Then we'll be joined by Avery Friedman and Goldie Taylor from Blue Nation Review here the next hour as a friend of Bill. But first, Peter, what do you got?
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. NBA playoff basketball is happening, so let's go through the weekend and walk through the scores. On Friday, the Hawks beat the Nets to get out of that series to move on to face the Washington Wizards. More on that in just a moment. On Saturday, it was Game 7, the L.A. Clippers against the San Antonio Spurs, and your world champion San Antonio Spurs were actually eliminated. They're out. They're out of the playoffs. They lost Game 7.
Reporting the story.
Peter, I can't believe you would report that story.
I give the news.
As a Spurs fan, yes.
Big Spurs. That was a hell of a series. It was a phenomenal series. And then we move on to yesterday, where the Hawks, as I mentioned earlier, went on to face the Wizards at home. The Hawks were at home, and they lost 104-98. The Wizards taking away a big win yesterday, and the Warriors taking on the Grizzlies. 101-86 was the final there. The Warriors making
So
quick
the Hawks
work of
still
the
in it.
Hawks are still in it.
The
Wizards are in
still
it, baby. Yes.
Wizards, yeah.
This was
yeah.
game one of the series with the Hawks, and Hawks looked terrible in the second half, and the Wizards capitalized. So they came away with a win.
I'm looking forward to the Eastern Conference Finals here in Washington. I'm a big Cleveland Cavaliers fan, and I'm going to say it. I think it's going to be Cavs and Wizards.
It could be.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Whoa! And it'll be at Verizon Center.
Yeah.
Oh man.
The Cavs would have home court, and the Cavs are a little banged up, but they're starting their series against the Bulls tonight, which should be a really good series. So
yeah, Cavs have got some problems.
We'll see.
But they're pretty strong.
That's Cleveland sports for you, but c'est la vie. At least we got LeBron back. So
a hiker in Pennsylvania was out looking for mushrooms, the safe mushrooms, not the magical mushrooms. And as he was looking, he found $63,000 in moldy bills. He was in Bald Eagle State Park, and he found all this money. I'm not sure why all of the money was out there, but he called the police, let them know, and gave the police all of the money.
How much did you say?
$63,000. $63,000. So what a sucker.
Yeah.
Take that money and run.
But man, You'd have to get a lot of mushrooms to get $63,000 worth.
That's right.
So, man.
That's right. That's why you take that money.
You got it.
Final story, Bill. Over the weekend, the Avengers Age of Ultron opened to $187.7 million over the weekend in North America alone. Believe it or not, that total actually fell short of Hollywood's expectations. They're saying that the good weather and the big sports weekend on Saturday, including the big fight on Saturday night, might have taken some money out of their pockets. They expect it to continue to make a lot of money. So $187.7 million.
Geez, somehow I missed that movie. Huh?
I think it was an Ogburn family outing, was it not?
I saw it. It's great.
Uh-huh.
You don't have to go see it.
Thank you.
You don't have to have fun. It's a good, fun movie.
If I had a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old, whatever it is, might take them too. But
yeah.
All right, you got it. Thank you, Peter. 13 minutes now after the hour. So the big headline in the Politico's playbook today is that Larry Sabato and Kyle Kondik and Jeff Skelly are out with their first 2016 crystal ball predictions. What are you predicting?
So we
look inside the crystal ball here.
We rolled out our first ratings of the Electoral College states today, and that's always a pretty popular item that we do. And what's crazy is that when we were coming up with them, when we finalized the ratings, it was 247 for the Democrats, at least safe, likely, or leaning toward the Democrats, 206 safe, likely, leaning to the Republicans, and 85 toss-ups. And what was crazy about it is that it was
for 2016.
This is for 2016. Is it was basically the same map as 2012.
No, really?
Yeah, because
nothing has changed.
The toss-ups are Ohio and Virginia and Florida, a lot of the states that were closest last time and have been closest in recent elections. And I don't think I think the Republican path to future Electoral College success is probably to win a lot of the Midwest, to not only consistently win Ohio, which any Republican has to do, but also to win states like Iowa and Wisconsin, and maybe even Minnesota, that are basically whiter than the nation as a whole. And, given that white voters are generally more Republican now, and minority voters are more Democratic, you would think that they would have to win some of the whiter states. But a lot of those states haven't voted Republican at the presidential level, in Wisconsin's case, since 1984. Pennsylvania's gone Democratic in 6 straight elections going back to 1992. And so, I think the Democrats have to start with kind of an inherent advantage in those states. And so if you look at that map, we have Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, both as leans Democratic. We have Michigan as likely Democratic. So again, I think my expectation is that the Electoral College map is going to look, no matter who wins, I think we're looking at a map that's similar to the Obama-Bush maps. And one other thing is that back in the 60s and 70s, a lot of states were competitive. In 1960 and 1976, which were 2 close elections, 20 of the 50 states were decided by 5 points or less. In 2012, it was just 4. Ohio, Virginia, Florida, and North Carolina. So the map is, the election is likely to be competitive, as much as we can tell at this early point, but only really a handful of states really should be competitive.
So what that says, I find it pretty depressing, that starting this election, if you look at the map right today, now, again, nothing is set in stone in politics, right? Things could change. But if you look at the map today, based on past analysis of how the states have gone, you could color a whole bunch of states red, and you could color a whole bunch of states blue, and you say with it's reasonable certitude that that's the way they would turn out in 2016.
Yeah, so
and there are 4 states in play.
Well, there's probably a few more than that, but over the last four elections, 40 of the 50 states have voted the same way in all 4. 40 of the 50 since 2000 have voted the same way. So And that 10 includes
2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, the last four. Huh?
Yeah. And
40 out of 50 states?
And even if you look at those states, a few of them are kind of fluky. Like Indiana went for Obama in 2008, but one doesn't think of Indiana as a swing state. I mean, that's a Republican state, basically.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a fluke. North Carolina is another one that barely went for Obama in 2008. I think is very competitive, but again, it's more of a lean Republican kind of state.
So you could basically just take this election. I mean, forget about Texas, forget about New York, forget about California, and just focus all your time, all your money, all your energy in winning whatever. It's 5, 6, 7,
5 to 10 states.
Right, and that's where that's the battleground.
That's the battleground.
Isn't that amazing? So. This just shows how this electoral vote just sucks. I mean, we ought to get rid of the electoral college. We should have done it a long time ago. We'll never do it, I guess, but
I mean, it is. It would totally change the way that the candidates compete because you'd have you'd have the Obama. I guess it won't be the Obama campaign anymore, but you would have you'd have like a giant campaign organization in Los Angeles or New York City. Where you just don't have that now. I mean, even a state like, even like a Pennsylvania again, which is competitive, but typically goes Democratic. I mean, so many places get ignored, basically.
Mm-hmm. On this map, could Republicans possibly win the White House in 2016?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the thing is like, what if the Republicans win nationally by 3 or 4 points? You'd have some of these states that don't look like they're in play, they would move because there's generally kind of a uniform swing. So if a Republican wins by more than a point or two, maybe the Republican does win Pennsylvania or does win Wisconsin.
So if you look at the map, you've got what? Both coastlines blue.
Yep.
And
most of the
upper middle red.
Yep.
And upper lower middle red, I guess.
Yeah, and there's the swing states. So there's 7 of them that we have. You've got 2 in the Midwest, Iowa and Ohio. You've got 2 in kind of the interior West in Colorado and Nevada. You've got Florida in the South. Mm-hmm. You've got Virginia in the South, although Virginia's not that much of a southern state anymore. And then you've got New Hampshire.
Not North Carolina.
No, we've got that as leans Republican because it's
and New Hampshire
and New Hampshire. And you could. It's interesting in doing the research for this. New Hampshire was more Democratic just by a tiny little bit than Pennsylvania was in 2012. And you can make the argument that New Hampshire has sort of trended to the Democrats, just like the rest of New England has. And of course, New Hampshire was one of the only places to reelect a Democratic senator in 2014 in a competitive race, Jeanne Shaheen.
Mm-hmm.
So you could. I mean, we think the Democrats kind of start with 247. You could make a case it should be 251 because of New Hampshire.
Right. So 251 with the Republicans down at 206 again. So they. The burden is on them, right?
Yeah, they have to win. I mean, first of all, they have to win Florida and Ohio as a baseline, and I think there are a lot of Republicans who are pessimistic that they're going to be able to win Florida in this election just because of the demographic change down there. And again, if you could come up with a scenario in which a Republican doesn't win Florida but wins the election, but again, they'd have to win basically the entire Midwest to make up for Florida. And maybe that's the Republican map of the future, but I don't think it would be in 2016.
There it is. Kyle Kondik from the Center for Politics at University of Virginia saying, hey, the results are already in.
In many of the states they are.
In many states are already in. So it's a lot of hullabaloo and a lot of about nothing, I guess. Your questions, your comments, particularly maybe if you're one of these swing states, 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends, Mother's Day.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Go. 26 minutes after the hour now, Avery Friedman, CNN's legal analyst, joins us at the half. Right now, Kyle Kondik in studio from the University of Virginia. What's the new book that we talked about last
Yeah,
time?
we've got a book out called The Surge,
That's right.
which is a look back at 2014, look ahead to 2016.
Right, and it's out today. Where can people find this electoral map, Kyle?
This is at Politico magazine. And then we're in our Crystal Ball newsletter on Thursday. We're going to have a kind of expanded take on with some takeaways from the big map.
All right. So if you go to Politico.com,
Yep.
You can find it. Just follow the link. Clicks to the magazine there. Let's take. So today's a big day. Ben Carson and Carly Fiorina both jumping in today. Ben Carson sort of anticipated in an interview he gave yesterday that wasn't supposed to be played until today, but he prematurely made his announcement.
And I'm willing to be a part of that equation, and therefore I am announcing my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
I must admit, the most low-key announcement of running for president I have seen, ever heard. Any chance?
I don't think so. I will say that Carson is a real popular guy amongst certain Republicans, and between him and Mike Huckabee, who's probably going to announce, and
Tomorrow.
Rick Santorum, I think that there are a lot of particularly evangelical voters who really like those guys. And maybe they win a state here and there. Maybe they rise to the top of the polls at some point. Although this is a better field than 2012. I mean, there was Mitt Romney was playing that kind of whack-a-mole game in the second half of 2011 against Rick Perry and a Herman Cain and a Michelle Bachmann. I think that we're going to see Walker, Rubio, Bush at the top of this race for the duration, I would think. I mean, again, there will be people who pop up here and there, and I think Carson will be one of them, but I don't think he has a realistic chance to win.
Does Christie have a prayer anymore?
Yeah, I don't think so. I was kind of one of the holdouts on Christie because I do think the guy is really talented politically, but it's just a mess, the Bridgegate stuff. And who knows if he gets implicated in it, but his numbers amongst Republicans are terrible anyway.
Right, yeah. So a bridge too far.
Yeah. Again, it's just he's in too big of a hole to dig out of.
All right. Kyle Kondik, nobody knows the political scene better than you. Thanks so much for coming in again today.
Thanks, Phil.
Check out this electoral map at Politico.com. Good work of Kyle and Larry Sabato. Thanks.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. If I see dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think We couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, it is Monday, May 4. It is The Bill Press Show, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. in our studio on Capitol Hill. Brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees. Yes, those good men and women of the AFGE under President J. David Cox, proud to work for America every day. You bet we thank them for the good works and for their sponsorship of the program. And for more information, go to their website at afge.org. It was a very dramatic scene on Friday where State Attorney for the City of Baltimore, Marilyn Mosby, walked out in front of the cameras from the courthouse as she declared that Freddie Gray had been arrested illegally. He had been thrown in the back of the police van in violation of city police department rules. He had lost his life as a result of the treatment he received at the hands of 6 police officers. His death, she declared a homicide. That's what their investigation found, and she announced that criminal charges would be filed against all 6 officers, the most serious charges against the driver of the van, Officer Caesar Goodson.
Officer Caesar Goodson is being charged with second-degree depraved heart murder, involuntary manslaughter, second-degree negligent assault, manslaughter by vehicle by means of gross negligence, manslaughter by vehicle by means of criminal negligence, misconduct in office for failure to secure a prisoner, failure to render aid.
All kinds of questions. How serious are the charges? How strong is the case against these officers? And here with the answers, our legal analyst, whom we borrow from CNN every once in a while with his permission, Avery Friedman. Hey, Avery, it's always good to have you join us. Thank you.
Well, Bill, it's nice to be back with you. And yeah, this is a lollapalooza. There are some elements here that no one has really talked about. There was a study by the Maryland ACLU that the chances of a police officer getting charged for killings in Baltimore, less than 2%.
Whoa!
And
really?
now you have 6 charges.
Yeah.
Initiated independently by the state's attorney in Baltimore, by Marilyn Mosby. This is extraordinary. You know, she could have waited for the cops to come up with their own decision, but this was a parallel investigation.
Yes.
And this is a prosecutor who's been in office only months.
4 months.
Yeah. I mean, this is an extraordinary development.
Now, the police did do their investigation. She said that she got their report on April 30, Thursday,
Yeah.
and she made and that she said basically confirmed everything that her independent investigation had found.
And the medical examiner's
And the
report
medical
on top
examiner,
of
yes,
it.
and the
she
coroner,
made.
right.
She has a right to do it. She can make her own independent judgment, or she could have waited for the department to release their investigation, or she could have just sent the whole kit and caboodle over to the grand jury, and that would have taken a long time. I mean, let me tell you something. Up here in Cleveland, you may remember last November, a police officer killed a 12-year-old, Tamir Rice.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely.
That's still sitting in the grand jury.
Yep.
That's 6 months
And
down the road.
remember how long it took in Ferguson?
That's exactly right. So if you really think about what's happened in Baltimore on so many different levels, Bill, this is an extraordinary effort by a brand new prosecutor to try to make police officers accountable.
Do you believe that she acted too quickly, too soon, rushed to judgment? You've heard the criticism.
Yeah, I have. And let me, in full disclosure, I've represented police officers. I've represented the police union. But in looking at what she did, and I've heard those allegations, in fact, some were saying that what she did by jumping the gun here was absolutely unethical. She went above and beyond. She talked about no justice, no peace. I think it's well within the discretion of the prosecutor to do that. And I don't think she jumped the gun.
Well, the no justice, no peace, I thought the way she said it, she said, look, and we all have, the entire nation has seen the riots there, and we've heard the chant, of course, no justice, no peace. And so she said, okay, I'm doing my job to deliver justice. Now, you guys, you do your job to deliver peace to this city.
Yeah, I think that context is fair. I don't think it editorializes on the charges. I mean, she was very direct, especially with Goodson, identifying precisely what charges have been lodged and what has to be established. I mean, establishing the kind of elements needed to get convictions. Although I think most Americans are utterly unfamiliar with the phrase "depraved heart murder." It's kind of a Dickensian sort of phrase, isn't it?
It is. No, it is indeed.
Depraved heart.
Now, of course, this case now will go to trial, go in front of a jury. How strong a case is it, and how tough will it be, to get a conviction here?
Well, I think there are several aspects of that, Bill. Number one, something's going on right now that I would like to think analysts are talking about, and that is some of the lesser involved officers are starting to flip. There's no way that Mosby would have gone after Goodson in this kind of a criminal case without somebody flipping below. That's what's going on, because who knows? It was another prisoner in the van.
Yep.
You got Freddie Gray, who's no longer with us, and you have 5 other officers. The only guy driving, of course, was Goodson. So somebody is flipping, and in that respect, prosecutors are probably feeling good about that. If you're defending this, though, the first thing you're going to do is what? You need to change in venue. You got to get out of Baltimore.
Yeah, right. And some of them are, the police union is calling this morning for, they're not the only ones, for a special prosecutor, right? It's too late for that, isn't it?
Well, it is too late for that. I don't know how they're going to do a switcheroo, and essentially it would be a concession by Mosby that she is incapable of handling this case.
Right.
But you know what? She's really not even going to try it. She's the administrator. I mean, the seasoned lawyers in that office are going to have to do the heavy lifting in a case like this. I mean, she'll be there, but she's counting on the experienced lawyers in the state attorney's office to handle this case. This is a big one.
Now, the fact that not only did he die at the hands of the police, but she said that he should not have been arrested in the first place. They had no grounds to arrest him in the first place. I found that really stunning. And the knife, right? We all heard he had the switchblade on him. Well, it turned out it wasn't a switchblade at all. It was not an illegal knife, according to her report.
Well, that's what's especially troubling in a case like this. I mean, it's one thing where you will see people charged with resisting arrest.
Yes.
Well, there's nothing against the law about resisting an unlawful order. If it's a legal order, a lawful order, then that's different. If you're taken off and, there's Freddie Gray taken off and running, and it's in an area of Baltimore that has high crime, substantial drug deals. Supreme Court said cops can chase you, but you get to the next step is, in looking at what they have, there was nothing here. And at that point, I think Mosby is right, and I think any constitutional lawyer will tell you that was improper, it was unlawful, and then everything that goes from there obviously gets thrown out.
What about this? I didn't realize, and Peter and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, what the L.A. Times called the rough ride, or I think.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not new, is it? This has been a common practice, huh?
It's some departments call it a nickel ride, some call it a rough ride, but what they do, have you ever been on the inside of a paddy wagon?
No. No.
You haven't.
No.
Even in the 60s and 70s, you weren't there. You were in the back room with the door closed.
As much as a rebel as I am, I've never been in there. But I understand that's what they throw them in the back and then give them a rough ride, right?
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, they're not secured in there, and you see how this particular individual was put in the van. I mean,
twice.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty obvious that and you really wonder what runs through the mind. You have to presume Goodson's innocence, of course, but what are they thinking? Especially when he's calling out he can't breathe, and I mean, the evidence was overwhelming that somebody should have done some intervention. In fact, actually, Sergeant Alicia White, who was one of the lesser charged officers, was calling in the back saying, "You okay?" And then there was silence. And
he
still
asked,
nobody did anything.
And according to, again, her, I mean, he asked for medical help on several occasions and received none.
And when you couple that with her inquiry and hearing nothing, that's a pretty clear signal that there's a problem here, and nobody did anything about it.
Do you think that this could be a turning point? You know, we've seen, what, how far back do we go, right, with this tension between police and the community, and then we talk about it when something like this flares up, whether it's in Cleveland or Ferguson or North Charleston, and then goes away again. But could this be a turning point, you think, to start taking a serious look at this? And
I think so. A couple of the members of Congress in the Baltimore area have come out saying, you know what, this may be a turnaround for the community, because if you're a police officer and I mean, the idea that they didn't know what they were doing was really wrong, I think is preposterous. I think it's going to deter police misconduct. I think on the close calls, that's where it gets complicated. But in a case like Freddie Gray, Bill, the evidence, and cases turn on facts, and these facts are dramatic. They're fairly well substantiated, and again, you couple that with a couple of the lesser charged officers flipping on Goodson and some of the senior ones. Man, oh man!
And then we got the video too. And
the video is part of the big picture, but I think the case really will be turning on the testimony of some of the other officers against Goodson.
All right, Marilyn Mosby, she stepped up to the plate.
Isn't that something?
I'm telling you. Avery, so good to visit with you again, my friend. We miss you.
Yeah, you look at, just push the button, pal. I'll be with you.
All right, okay. Thanks, Avery. You can follow Avery at lawfriedman.com. Lawfriedman.com. See him on CNN.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans, because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000. I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want. But lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour. Things are popping fast here on the Bill Press Show. In the next hour, Goldie Taylor from the Blue Nation Review will be here as a friend of Bill for the entire hour. We'll be joined by James Glassman from the American Enterprise Institute. And here we are. The sun is barely up, and already we have two new presidential candidates today. How about that? On the Republican side, Ben Carson in Detroit, making it official. He is former retired neurosurgeon, crazy right-winger, as far as I'm concerned. But he's the Herman Cain almost of this race. Pretty far out there. But he is running. And so is Carly Fiorina, former CEO of Hewlett-Packard, making her announcement just a few minutes ago on on ABC News, Good Morning America. And Mike Huckabee ready to join the pack tomorrow. I forget. Oh, no. He's making his announcement in Hope, Arkansas.
Hope, Arkansas, yeah.
Isn't it interesting that Mike Huckabee and Bill Clinton both
stole all of Clinton's big ideas?
Yeah. Yeah, right. Both from Hope, Arkansas. And, of course, the Republican side getting more crowded. There are now 6 official declared, will be when Mike Huckabee comes in tomorrow, 6 officially declared Republican candidates, and at least another dozen more who are expected to jump in. We haven't had an official announcement yet from Scott Walker, right, nor from Jeb Bush. Right. And, Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz are already in there as well. Again, as today, Ben Carson, Carly Fiorina, and tomorrow, Mike Huckabee. The one Republican we probably will not see jumping in after all is Chris Christie, after the news came down on Friday that the Bridgegate scandal has not gone away and is not going to go away. 2 of the governor's top aides, as we discussed a little bit at the top of the hour with Kyle Kondik, were indicted on criminal charges of conspiring to shut down the George Washington Bridge in political retaliation against the mayor of Fort Lee, New Jersey, who had refused to endorse Chris Christie for re-election. In addition to that, 1/3 aide to the governor, Donald Wildman, he pleaded guilty to similar charges. So these 3 people, very, very close to Chris Christie, are now facing criminal charges, which you can read one of 2 ways for Chris Christie. Either because the federal prosecutors said they're not going to file, no other charges are going to be filed against anybody else. So Chris Christie is using that to say, you see, I told you so. I'm not guilty. I knew nothing about it. There were no charges filed against me. Therefore, I have been exonerated. And yet other people will say, look, this took place under his watch inside of his office by people he appointed to these jobs. and it smells, and Chris Christie is deserves part of the blame. Either way, and I think the latter is true. I think for Chris Christie, it's basically all over.
Seems that way, right?
Yeah. On the Democratic side, the number of Democratic candidates has doubled, thanks to Bernie Sanders. Our Bernie Sanders jumping in. He was with us on Thursday, jumping in, and he had a little news conference on Thursday here at the Capitol. And then he went off to Manchester, New Hampshire for a real, very, very successful big rally up there in Manchester, and appeared yesterday on with George Stephanopoulos on This Week, where Bernie said we need a political revolution.
We need a political revolution in this country involving millions of people who are prepared to stand up and say enough is enough, and I want to help lead that effort.
He wants to help lead that effort. And Peter, people seem to be responding.
Yeah, he pulled in $1.5 million in donations from online, and the average donation was a little over $43 per donation. So people are fired up.
Yeah, absolutely. As we saw from our listeners and our viewers, people are really fired up. And the website is everycall.com.
You got it, yeah.
So if you haven't checked in yet to find out more about the campaign, or to pledge your support, or maybe to even send another $43 or less or more, whatever you can, it's berniesanders.com. And I thought it was very high-spirited of her for Hillary Clinton to welcome Bernie into the race. She said the more voices, the more people, the merrier, and which means that we're going to have no coronation, but instead exactly what I think we needed. I think we do need a healthy, vigorous, exciting, fun political Democratic primary. And by the way, Bernie Sanders said he is not going to run a negative campaign against Hillary. He has never run a negative spot in his entire life. And in fact, I heard this yesterday from his top campaign aide. The last time he ran for re-election, get this, he did not run one single paid ad on radio or television, not one, and he won by 71%.
How about that?
Don't underestimate Bernie Sanders. Hey, we'll be right back and tell you what the POTUS has for today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, a fun first 2 hours here on this Monday, but remember, hour number 3 coming up. You got to wait on Free Speech TV to watch it until 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 Central. You can watch it right away, hour number 3 on TawkrTV. So jump over to our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Lots coming up in the third hour. Goldie Taylor from the Blue Nation Review is going to be here for the entire hour. As a friend of Bill, we'll be joined by James Glassman of the American Enterprise Institute, talking about all the great people who should run for president, but who are not doing so. Hour number 3 coming up. Stay with us.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
Should I get back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat the threat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
Okay, President Obama up to New York City today. He's launching a new initiative on the Brothers Keepers Alliance, and then he will be taping an appearance on the David Letterman Show tonight. Later, he'll do a fundraiser for the DNC, and then participate in DNC Roundtable, and then back to Washington, arriving back at the White House tonight at 11:15 p.m. Goldie Taylor next as a friend of Bill.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What they told us we were doing was going to rid the state of frivolous lawsuits. So we said, okay, let's vote for this.
Leading up to the 2003 effort in Texas, the insurance companies primarily, but also the medical industry, started this drumbeat. They were alleging that medical malpractice lawsuits were soaring and the cost of healthcare was going way up. They barraged the citizens of Texas with these frightening, scary messages that we were in some sort of crisis. But the reality was that simply wasn't true.
One of the things I think the public doesn't fully understand is that lawsuits are about a lot more than just seeking compensation for an individual plaintiff. By giving damages to the individual, the jury is sending a message about safety to the doctors, the nurses, the hospital. Please change your ways. Make healthcare safer for all of us.
Bill and Kelly Putnam experienced a nightmare scenario. They're in the nursing home with their father. The nurse administers medication improperly. As a result, he started to choke on the medication, and Kelly was forced to provide CPR on her father while staff at the nursing home did nothing.
I was probably 6 inches away from my dad's eyes. He's no longer thrashing, he's no longer moving.
And so they took him to the hospital, they worked on him, cause of death, aspiration. Texas Board of Nursing ruled that the nurse not only did what we said she did, but she also said that the facility had her destroy the medical records for that day and create a new version. I decided to give a lawyer friend a call. I went through probably 10, maybe more. All of them I got the same letter back stating that because of tort reform, we cannot afford to litigate these types of cases.
What the 2003 restrictions did was make it economically unfeasible for most attorneys to take most medical malpractice cases. It's a cynical attempt to make it harder for people to go to court by making it harder for them to get representation.
I do remember when Patricia Whitman first contacted me, because as a cardiologist, I was pretty outraged when I looked at the medical records.
Patricia Whitman visited the emergency room complaining of chest pains. They look at her EKG. Doctor says, no, you've got indigestion, go home. The symptoms persist. Next day she goes in, sees a different physician. She's been having a heart attack.
Anyone looking at this EKG in a patient with chest pain has to consider that that patient is having an acute heart attack until proven otherwise. All of these abnormalities were essentially ignored, and a diagnosis of acid reflux was made in Patricia Whitman's case, and that was the wrong diagnosis.
The doctor came in and he said that I had substantial permanent heart damage and that I was, quote unquote, 100% disabled. Prior to the heart attack, I had a 3,500 square foot home that I took care of, and I was on my feet 8 hours a day going to cosmetology school. Then I would come home and cook for my kids and do whatever else needed to be done. I did it all. After the heart attack, I couldn't keep up with the house. I couldn't pay the mortgage. My life has changed a lot. I will never be able to do what I used to do. I have to depend on 5 heart medications that I have to take every day in order to survive. This is a letter from one attorney. It would be difficult to prove that the ER physician's conduct rose to the level of gross negligence. No attorney would take my case.
Tort reform involved a specific passage of language that said that a simple negligence standard no longer applied to emergency room care in Texas. The new standard was a gross negligence standard called willful and wanton negligence.
You have to prove in court that that doctor saw me walk through the door and said, that's my next victim. And of course that doesn't happen. And so people like Patricia Whitman, who find themselves in the emergency room and are misdiagnosed or harmed, face almost no ability for accountability. If you look back and you break down the arguments made by the insurance companies and medical industry about the cost, quality, access of healthcare in Texas, by every metric, we're worse off today than we were 10 years ago. It has made life better and easier for a small group of corporate interests at the expense of the rest of us.
These corporations, they have no fear because they know they'll be held responsible. It shouldn't be about money. But unfortunately, that's the only language these people speak. That's why we're out protesting.
We will stand out on the street in front of the facility with signs that state what happened and make sure that they understand that we're not going to go away and that what they did was wrong.
We must restore meaningful accountability in this state so that another family does not go through the same nightmare that they've been through. If enough people in the public say enough is enough, then politicians have to think twice. We're never going to be able to compete with the special interests in terms of campaign contributions and money. Where we have to compete with them is in boots on the ground. The more people that rise up and say, we want our rights back, then they have to think about it. And once we've made them think about it, then half the battle is won.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Yes, indeed. 6 police officers in Baltimore charged with criminal charges in the death of Freddie Gray, which the state prosecutor says was a homicide. That's the big news over the weekend. We've been focusing on that this morning on the Bill Press Show, and we welcome you to hour number 3 here on this Monday, May 4. Good to see you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Coast to coast, we're with you on your local progressive talk radio station and nationwide, with you also on Free Speech TV, worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. And we look forward to hearing from you with your comments on the news of the day. Don't forget our toll-free number is 866-55-PRESS. You can also reach us on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Hope you're starting off the week in good form and had a good weekend. We're so pleased to begin our third hour here. And here to help us through the entire third hour is a friend of Bill. Goldie Taylor is a columnist and senior editor at the Blue Nation Review. Hello, Goldie. Good to see you.
Good morning, Bill. Good to see you.
Thanks for coming in for the whole ride here this hour. Peter Ogburn, of course, and Elisa Murphy leading our team.
Hey, hey.
Hey, good morning.
With Jamie Benson is here to take your calls, screening calls today at 866-55-PRESS. Cyprian Bowling, as always, on the job as our videographer. And Goldie, so exciting in the last few minutes on ABC's Good Morning America. We have a new candidate for Stephanopoulos talking to Carly Fiorina.
Let's get right to it. Are you running for president? Why are you the best person for the job?
Yes, I am running for president. I think I'm the best person for the job because I understand how the economy actually works. I understand the world, who's in it, how the world works. I understand bureaucracies, and that's what our federal government has become, a giant, bloated, unaccountable, corrupt bureaucracy.
All right, there you go. Off and running, right?
We are off to the races. You know, I always said I wanted to run for president just so I could see my name come across that push alert on your phone, because I thought that'd be really cool. Because that's about all Carly Fiorina's going to get out of this is a push alert.
Yeah, right,
Seeing a push alert. You know, how little campaign structure organization you have to make your announcement on Good Morning America?
Because she's got, like, none. Right?
None.
You know what she's got? I mean, I know I'm going to slam for making a sexist remark.
Okay.
I think the only reason she's getting attention at all is she's the only woman in 24 or 22 or 21, whatever it is, candidates. So she'll be part of the mix all the way through.
I think
for that reason.
I think that's one of the reasons why she's positioned in this race, because you have a very strong Democratic frontrunner in Hillary Clinton, and you know, you need a counterpoint to that. You know, you need someone who can speak to your values, principles, whatever they are, you know, on women's issues. And Carly Fiorina would be sort of the embodiment of that. And so maybe it's helpful to Republicans. I think it's a cynical ploy.
And by the way, whatever happened at Hewlett-Packard, Carly? Tell us about that, right?
Yeah.
It's about where are the jobs, lady? Where are the jobs?
She didn't leave on her own. She was booted out of there anyhow.
With a quickness.
All right. So, and Ben Carson, we should add, already also announced today as well. So we've got a lot to get into here with Goldie Taylor, particularly find out the latest, all the attacks now, and Fox News man, full-time attacks on State Attorney Marilyn Mosby up in Baltimore. We'll get into that. But first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Congratulations to the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry, it's expected he's going to be named the NBA's MVP a little bit later on today, they're saying. Sources from inside the Warriors say they have been notified that it's going to be Curry, who had just a bonkers year, an insane year. It was kind of down to between him and James Harden. They were the two finalists. And they said that at the end, Curry did more to take his team farther. So an early congratulations to Steph Curry. At the end of last week, Elon Musk unveiled a new item that you can buy. It's called the Powerwall, Tesla's Powerwall. It's pretty cool, right? Look at this picture. I'll tweet out a picture of it so that you can take a good look at it. It's a whole new division of Tesla called Tesla Energy.
Nothing to do with the car. It came from the battery in the car.
Right.
But this is for homes and businesses.
It's for homes and businesses. He said you can use this to power, like to charge your car, but you can also use it to power your house. Right now, their biggest issue is finding people who know how to install them. So if you do buy one, you have to find someone who knows how to set it up. But they're starting at $3,000 to get one of these things. It could help power your house. Pretty cool, huh?
Be nice, if you bought the car and you got the battery thrown in too.
Yeah, right? Not bad. And it was the biggest boxing match that we have seen in probably 20 years. Floyd Mayweather Jr. taking on Manny Pacquiao on Saturday night. You know how it ended by now. It went all 12 rounds, and the judges decided that Floyd Mayweather Jr. won the match. He remains undefeated.
I think I slept rounds 5 through 11.
It was a boring boxing match.
It wasn't Ali Spinks for sure.
No. But, it's funny because several years ago when boxing was so big and Mike Tyson was at the top of his game, matches were only lasting seconds. He was knocking people out in the first, second round.
Well, that's because Tyson said, this was a business deal. He said, I am a killer.
Yeah.
There's a different frame of mind in boxing today.
Look, Cry Me a River. The two of them split a gate of $300 million.
Yeah.
I'm with that.
Yeah.
All
They
right,
both walked away with between $100 and $200 million.
Right. All right. So
it's crazy.
Yeah. Crazy. That's right. I saw a guy last night on television. He and a couple of friends, they paid $130,000.
Yo.
There were about half a dozen of them, but $130,000 to get tickets there. They were in Vegas. They were saying they wanted their money back because it was such a boring match.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, guess what? Dumbbell.
Yeah.
Should have thought about that before you bought this ticket. All right. 13 minutes after the hour. She is, as far as I'm concerned, Goldie, a new rock star. Let's just hear a quick clip from Marilyn Mosby on Friday. Maybe the first one there where she says that the death of Freddie Gray, if we have that, Elisa, was in fact homicide.
The findings of our comprehensive, thorough, and independent investigation, coupled with the medical examiner's determination that Mr. Gray's death was a homicide, which we received today, has led us to believe that we have probable cause to file criminal charges.
What do you think of Marilyn Mosby?
I think she's outstanding. A homicide simply means death at the hands of another.
Mm-hmm.
And, what they determined is this was not some self-inflicted wound where this man was banging his head against a wall. And they made that determination based on the evidence that only they're privy to. And so I hear a lot of talk show pundits talking about how weak this case must be, that she didn't, get to surpass the bar of cause here. We don't know which officers are saying what at this moment. We don't know what all of the medical evidence shows. We haven't seen any of the pathology reports, and it's not for us to see, frankly. Mm-hmm. And so I think that she's done the job under, in spite of all of the public pressures coming from a number of different constituencies. She's only 35 years old, and to have that kind of fortitude, I think, was simply outstanding.
I love the fact that she said, as a result of our independent, comprehensive, whatever else report, and in addition, the medical examiner's report, and then she added a little bit later, and the police report, which had come in the day before, and she put all that. I mean, she was on the job. She was on this. They were on this from day one. And the criticism that I don't understand, that I've heard the most, is that she moved too fast. Too quickly. Well, how long did they expect her to wait? We've been waiting in Cleveland, where this Tamir Rice, the young kid, was shot by the police officer.
We've been waiting for months for
that's still in the grand jury.
It's moved too fast for who? If these were not officers, if they were common people on the street and who had been charged, say, within 72 or 96 hours, or even a week or 2 weeks or 3 in this case, no one would have said there was a rush to judgment. It's because these are police officers, number one. And by the way, police unions, God bless them, within hours of any incident happening, they are on your local television, radio screen before the microphones telling you that their officer is innocent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Despite not having all of the evidence, despite having demonstrable evidence, as they did in the Michael Slager case in South Carolina, that their officer was lying. And so, it's difficult for me to listen to or hear, some of the pundits out there, especially people who come from law enforcement who are on our television screens every night, telling us basically how officers are never wrong, how they always act within protocol, how they never act illegally, how they absolutely, and I believe this, are putting their lives on the line on behalf of communities every day, but that they always do the right thing, as if somehow police officers are not human and do frailties in the job.
So the latest, Fox News has been full-time this morning on the attack on Marilyn Mosby. The latest two are, and we've heard this before, that one, she has a conflict of interest because her husband's on the city council. I mean, how ridiculous can you get?
How absolutely ridiculous is that? If you look across this country, you'll find a number of city council members who are married to other public officials. It was her. She had to do her job, no matter who her husband is or is not. There was also another fracas kicked up that she had received campaign contributions from the family's defense attorneys. Well, I happen to know that attorneys of every stripe, corporate defense prosecutors, give donations to their colleagues all the time, regularly. Are you going to stop criminal defense attorneys from giving campaign donations to judges? That happens every day in this country. And by the way, the Fraternal Order of Police also gave Marilyn Mosby a campaign donation and endorsed her bid for state attorney.
No, that's the best answer to that. She might have gotten a check from the attorney who is now, wasn't then, but is now representing the Gray family. But she also got a check from the police union.
Absolutely. Now, if she'd sided with the police union, we absolutely would hear people saying, well, prosecutors and police work too closely together. And by the way, I come down on that side. I come down on the side of these things where I don't necessarily like having state's attorneys or district attorneys investigating the very police officers that they have to work with on a daily basis to bring other cases.
Because we've seen in other jurisdictions.
We've seen other jurisdictions where that just simply doesn't work out.
That's simply, right, it doesn't work. This, to me, was, though, her investigation and her announcement was exactly what the city of Baltimore needed. And the nation needed, I think, at the time.
I think what people were really looking for, and I think you'll hear, a smattering of people out there calling for an outright conviction, but I think what people are really looking for is truth and transparency. And I think that's what Marilyn Mosby is promising people for the first time, a trial. I think there were many people that, whether he was guilty or innocent, in Darren Wilson's case, people wanted to see him stand trial and face a jury of his peers and watch all of the evidence, whatever it happened to be weighed out. A lot of people wanted to see that in some other cases. In the case of Eric Garner and the police officer who used an illegal chokehold on him in New York City, killed him right there in a public street with a video camera rolling. A lot of people wanted to see that officer face a jury of his peers. What happens in this country is that you rarely have an indictment or charges brought against an officer, but in terms of them going to trial and seeing a conviction, that is like finding a speckled dodo bird, because it just simply doesn't happen all too often in this country. We can charge them, but we can rarely get them to convict them, because getting 12 people to sit on a jury, without 3 or 4 saying, well, maybe the officer had some reason to do this. It's just a really tall order. And so in this case, I think people want to see it go to trial. They want to monitor this trial. They want to stay close to it and make sure that justice is done. Let the chips fall where they may.
Mm-hmm. Had you ever heard of this woman before this?
Never. Never. And I am now never going to forget her name.
No way. There's no way.
I am now never. But, there are hundreds of prosecutors in this country who work in anonymity, who do the difficult work of, going out and investigating, situations such as these and having to come up with their absolute best judgment on whether there should be charges or to seek an indictment, to do it under this kind of public glare and scrutiny. And to do it with such resolve and, such a steely backbone, I think is admirable.
The other charge, of course, and is that she answered this, she slammed this one, is that she's anti-cop, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because she's so young. She's a woman, she doesn't know what she's doing. So she just went out, she started out with this bias, anti-police. Do we have, so here, she just knocks this one out of the park.
I come from 5 generations of law enforcement. My father was an officer. My mother was an officer. Several of my aunts and uncles. My recently departed and beloved grandfather was one of the founding members of the first black police organization in Massachusetts.
Oh, glory.
Next question.
Next question.
Yeah.
I just wanted to stand up and shout when I heard it.
No, absolutely. Somebody we could believe it again. Goldie Taylor here with us from Blue Nation Review. And your questions, your comments, you're with us as well. Marilyn Mosby. What do you think? Rockstar, if you ask me, 866-55-PRESS. And again, just what this country, just what Baltimore needed. Let's talk about it here on the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
They called her Little Sanju. She was born in a village at the foot of the Himalayas, the smallest of 7 brothers and sisters.
My family was very poor. To get by, we raised cows and we made small things for tourists out of bamboo. But we were always hungry, and no matter how hard he tried, my father was always in debt. When I was 11, my father told me I had to go to work making carpets. I had to leave with a man who took me to the carpet factory. The broker who took me away got paid, but they never paid my father anything. I made knots from 4 in the morning until 8 at night. There was never a day off. I was always hungry. I cut my fingers while weaving and had to weave with cut fingers. My hands began to look like my grandmother's. I cried every night. I thought the rest of my life would be only this.
It takes 1 million knots to make one 8x10 rug. In the 1990s, 1 million children were enslaved making carpets in South Asia. Then a hero entered the picture. It was you. If you knew how these carpets were made, you would no longer think they were so beautiful. And if you could choose a better rug, your buying power could end child slavery in the rug industry. From that simple idea, Goodweave was born. Here's how it works. To earn the Goodweave label, companies agreed not to employ children. Goodweave makes sure by conducting surprise inspections. When children are found, Goodweave helps them.
2 years ago, a Goodweave inspector named Grona found me in the factory. When I saw him, I was scared, but Grona put his arm around me and told me it would be okay. Grona took me to Hamro Gar, a home for rescued carpet kids run by Goodweave. I'm the first person in my family to ever go to school.
Today, thousands of children like Sanju have been educated and rescued by Goodweave. And because you chose the Goodweave label, 3/4 of those million children weaving carpets are now free. And Sanju, with Goodweave's support, she's able to attend her village school and live at home where she belongs. Now that's a beautiful rug that tells a beautiful story. Stand with Sanju. Insist on the Goodweave label.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour. Here we go. Monday, May 4. James Glassman from American Enterprise Institute joins us at the half hour. Joins us, me, and Goldie Taylor, who is senior editor and columnist for the Blue Nation Review, here for the entire hour as a friend of Bill. We've been talking about Baltimore, and let's not forget some of the root causes behind the unrest that we saw, the violence that we saw. Carl is calling from Rochester, New York. Hey, Carl.
Oh, Bill. Yeah, the main problem is shipping jobs overseas. When you have no jobs for people, you have poor neighborhoods. When you have poor neighborhoods, you have crime. What these wealthy, affluent neighborhoods don't understand is pretty soon it's coming to your neighborhood. Because soon they're going to figure out we're not going to burn down our homes anymore. We're going to go burn down yours.
Carl, I appreciate the call. Goldie, it gets to the point, I mean, if you go back to the 60s and you have 65, right, with Watts or the Rodney King riots, which I was in the middle of in Los Angeles, you know, and today, now in Baltimore, right, it gets back to lack of jobs, lack of educational opportunities, poverty, and the same root causes. When are we going to start focusing on them, right?
We're not. There's
Really?
so much to agree with this caller, but, you know, we Americans are strange birds. We believe in building walls of containment. And so do I believe that we're going to reverse the tide that stripped away and tore up our manufacturing base in this country, that, you know, gutted tax bases out of inner cities? Do I think that we're going to turn around and make meaningful reinvestments in education in terms of rebuilding the bridges and pathways to the American dream for the least of these and the marginalized? I don't think we are. I don't think we have a candidate for president in 2016 who's seriously committed to any of that. And so you're going to so you've got 1/3 of all young black males in Baltimore out of a job.
Yeah.
And so, and if you lock them up and lock them out, what are you going to get?
We're going to get more Baltimores.
More Baltimores.
Thank you, Goldie Taylor. James Glassman joins us. Stay tuned.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right,
I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go at 33 minutes after the hour. It is The Bill Press Show, coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and our studio on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building. Brought to you today by the Laborers International Union of North America. Good men and women of the Laborers Union under President Terry O'Sullivan, building a better America, and that's their website, LIUNA, L-I-U-N-A, buildsamerica.org. Check it out. Goldie Taylor is here from the Blue Nation Review for the entire hour as an FOB, a friend of Bill.
I remember that.
Goldie, always good to see you. Thank you. And we are joined by another longtime friend of Bill and former neighbor on Capitol Hill, James Glassman, who is now, let's see, a contributor to Politico magazine, and also a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Jim, it's good to see you.
Great to see you, Bill. Great to be back in the neighborhood.
Thank you for coming in. I don't know whether Goldie knows this, but I do remember very well that I have at home a signed copy of a book by you called Dow 36,000.
Right.
Which you wrote in 1999. Now, either, Jim, you were way off at the time, or you are well on your way to having your wish come true, because now we're, what, at Dow about 18,000?
18,000. It's not very far to go. All we need to do is
halfway there.
All we need to do is double. Yes. Well, you know, one of my colleagues at AEI said, never associate a number with a date. And I didn't quite, but still, a lot of people were anticipating that 36,000 would happen earlier. But we're getting there.
But do you remember what it was when you wrote the book?
It was about
10?
9 or 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, of course, went down.
Then it went down.
But it's come back up remarkably under Barack Obama. But and 18 this is the record, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. We're at a record, and
so how do you read it? I mean,
well, you know, I think that the U.S. economy is not particularly strong, but we're growing at about 2%. Have been since 2000. So something is happening, and I hope it's not long term. But the stock market's doing well, mainly because most investors have to choose between bonds and stocks, and interest rates are so low that really it's kind of a no-brainer choice. And so there's more money moving into the stock market. Also, you've got businesses that are doing a pretty good job of making money. And so I would expect this to continue for a while.
I guess the point, Goldie, though, is you hear, and I love that every time I see it, the market is up. But that doesn't mean it's up for everybody.
It doesn't mean it's up for everybody. I remember in the late 80s, I mean, pre-tech boom, pre-technology stocks, when we were cheering that the Dow was getting over 1,000. And so here we are at 18,000. And so it's a little bit, You want to feel good about having that kind of activity, but it doesn't always equate. In fact, it rarely equates to people out on Main Street and seeing their personal wealth grow.
It's just one factor, I guess, in terms
one factor of it, one indicator.
One indicator of economic,
right.
The health of the economy.
That's true. But more and more people have 401k plans and other tax-advantaged retirement plans. So it's certainly good for them. It's good for starting businesses because it seems to be easier to get money. But I think, the big question in economics these days is what's going to happen with interest rates, because we have a very artificial situation with essentially zero short-term rates. And will those rates go up? Everyone expects that they will eventually. I actually wrote something a few months ago in my column in Kiplinger's Personal Finance that I write every month, saying don't count on that happening this year. And so we'll see. But really,
but hasn't Janet Yellen indicated that the Fed has no choice, or that we're at such a point now where they can raise rates and will?
She has so indicated, but when that's going to happen, we don't know, because the economy is still not. It's okay, but it's still not moving ahead very fast. We just had this 0.2% growth in the first quarter, which may have been anomalous. It may have been, because of the weather or something like that. And we certainly have no inflation. Right. Prices are very steady. So there are not the usual conditions where you would see the Fed raising interest rates. So I don't think the Fed will raise rates this year, maybe next year, but I don't think it's going to happen this year, even though I would say most people anticipate that it will happen this year.
Do you believe, I ask you both, Goldie, that there's an underlying maybe an underbelly here of this income inequality, which now even some Republican candidates are talking about, Scott Walker and others, Rick Santorum for a while. Is that going to be a major theme, Goldie, do you think, going into 2016?
I think access to capital for small businesses, growing businesses, are going to be, continue to be a major theme, especially in black and brown communities where capital is least available. No matter how free you make the money, it doesn't make it available to some of those folks who, don't meet the ever, restrictive criteria that you're finding coming from the banks. It used to be that you could go to a bank and present a business plan and have great credit and get a startup loan. Those days are gone. And so unless you've got equity in your house, which no one has anymore because they lost their house during the last bust. And so what do you have to leverage other than your own sweat equity to get businesses started in this country? And so I think if I'm on the campaign trail, Republican or Democrat, I'm talking about how I, refuel the engine of growth in some of these distressed and challenged communities where, free enterprise really can reign, because free enterprise isn't free, it takes capital.
Mm-hmm. Well, I completely agree with what Goldie just said. I think we've reacted, the regulators have reacted, and the politicians, to the 2008-2009 recession way too much, way overreacted. So it's very hard to get the kinds of loans that Goldie just talked about. And not only that, but it's also very difficult for lower income people to get personal loans, small loans. Let's say water heater goes out, you need $1,000, you don't have a credit card. Really, that is taken care of generally by installment lending, small dollar installment lending, and there's been a tremendous crackdown on that. And the CFPB, which I'm sure Bill you like in a lot of ways, I think has really overreacted, and it's becoming, access to credit is really tough, especially for low and middle income people.
Well, access to credit is doing something else to lower and middle income people. It's squeezing them out of the banking market and into this predatory market. And so if my hot water heater goes out, I go to the title loan joint on the corner, and I get this 30-day payday loan that has an extraordinary level of interest that I wind up paying on for several years and lose my car anyway. And so these are the kinds of issues that keep working poor people poor.
This is a total unrelated tangent in a sense, but you mentioned the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. The one problem I have with it is that Elizabeth Warren is not in charge of it. But of course, she's a United States Senator, so there is a compensation there. But I was at a dinner the other night, and Elizabeth Warren was there, and the actual head of the CFPB,
right,
whose name I totally forget.
I've forgotten it as well.
Richard.
He's a very powerful person in Washington. The CFPB it doesn't get its money from Congress. It's an amazing institution that Elizabeth Warren came up with.
What I remember is that she walks into the room and is the rock star. He walked in. Nobody. Yeah. I recognized him. I knew who he was. I don't know. It's embarrassing for all of us. Yeah. But nobody even. He could have been the waiter. Nobody knew had any idea who he was. So now you have written a very interesting. But we're going to take a break here. But before we do, I just want to get your first take. A very interesting article for Politico magazine. We're talking about. I mean, we have 2 new candidates for. I hope you know that. Today, we have 2 new candidates for president.
Yes,
probably since you left the house to come to the studio.
I heard it on your show.
We have another one tomorrow morning who's announcing, and then Bernie Sanders last Thursday. So we have all these people who are running. You talk about all the people. You wrote about all the people who could run, maybe who should run, but who are not running.
Right. So what I wrote about was how we have a closed presidential system that preserves a duopoly, the Democratic and Republican parties, and that really today we need independents to run. That is, the people who are outside the party structure. So everybody that you mentioned or you didn't mention, Carly Fiorina, Sanders, and all these, these are all people who are running for the nominations of the Democratic and Republican parties. 43% of Americans say that they are independents, which is more than either Democrats or Republicans. It's the highest figure ever in American history. Americans are very dissatisfied, again, probably a record, with the way their government is performing. They don't like gridlock. They don't like the squabbling. They don't like the fact that people get reelected over and over again in Congress without any opposition. They don't like the fact that both parties have moved to the extremes. And so we believe, a group of us, about 4 dozen of us, believe that the solution is to have an independent candidate run for president. Unfortunately, the obstacle to that is the Presidential Election Commission, the Presidential Debate Commission, the Commission on Presidential Debates, or CPD, which is an independent 501c3 organization that is quite partisan in the sense that its members are people like Frank Fahrenkopf, who's the co-chairman. He's the former chairman of the Republican National Committee. And your friend, Mike McCurry, is the other co-chairman.
Frank's a friend of mine, too. I know that both well.
And Frank's a friend of mine. But the fact is that they have developed a system that keeps out independents. Now, we don't want a whole bunch of them, but we'd like to see one because we think it'll actually influence both the Democrats and the Republicans.
All right, Goldie, when we come back, I want to get your take on that, too. But let's take a quick break here with James Glassman and Goldie Taylor. An independent party on the ballot in all 50 states, so an independent candidate can really be a serious contender for president. Yes or no? 866-55-PRESS if you want to jump in. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found on the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Michael, learn.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour. Not necessarily a brand new idea, but a big idea put forward by James Glassman here in the Politico magazine to make it easier for an independent candidate to be able to run for president. James Glassman is here with us with Goldie Taylor. What do you think, Goldie?
I think he's on the money. I think that the dual system is hurting us. I think it polarizes us. It keeps us apart on so many issues. And so I'm for more voices, not fewer, at the table. If we can get the rule changed where we can have more voices on that debate stage, I think it changes, the nature of the discourse. And so you can't sort of stay with your individual, these extreme platforms. You got to come together on some stuff when you put another voice on the table. Ross Perot did an awful lot for elections in this country, I think, and they changed the rule because of him to keep people like him off the stage to preserve this sort of two-party system.
Well, both parties saw that, this guy got 19% of the vote. Jesus,
Absolutely.
he might have been elected. We better change the rules to prevent that from happening again. Now, I think he was crazy, but I loved having him in the debates.
Absolutely.
Going into the debates, Ross Perot had 8% in the polls, and he ended up with 19% of the vote. That's how powerful the debates are. And I think he influenced the other candidates. Another interesting figure is that the Ross Perot debates in 1992 polled an audience of 66 million. In the last debates, we had an audience of 62 million, even though the United States is 30% larger today than it was in 1992. Americans, as Goldie says, Americans want more choices. And the current system does not allow it, because if you don't get in the debates, you can't get elected president. And we have a race between the duopolies, and Americans are unhappy with that.
And
we have a strong number of people who are independent today, who voice themselves as independent. They just don't vote that way because they don't have the option to vote that way today. And so when you have an independent in the race who is underfunded, doesn't have the staff and infrastructure to get it done, they tend to be spoilers rather than people who can be competitive and win.
The organization for pushing for a change that James and you and others have put together is Change the Rule. ChangeTheRule.org is the website, and we'll put a link up on our website to that. And so if this commission, led by Mike McCurry and Frank Farnkopf, opened it up, that's all it would take, right? It doesn't take a vote of the people, or the 53 or 37 states have to do this and change the Constitution.
No, it does not. Every state has a rule for getting on the ballot, and it's not easy to get on the ballot. Some states it's easier than others, but we feel that an independent candidate or a third-party candidate, should make the effort to get on the ballot, just as an independent candidate for governor should. There are 2 rules that you have to meet, 2 tests you have to meet in order to get in the debates. Number 1, you have to be on the ballot in enough states to constitute 270 electoral votes, which is, of course, the majority. And that is not easy. Actually, very few people have done that, but it certainly is possible. And then the second qualification is the difficult one, which is you have to poll 15% in the polls in mid-September. So you don't even know whether you're going to be in the debates until mid-September, which is ridiculous. You could never have an organization unless you know you're going to get in the debates, because you can't really be a serious candidate. But getting 15% is very, very difficult. Since 1960, there has been no candidate who's gotten 15% who was not a participant in the party debates. Okay, so John Anderson did it, but he was in the Republican debates. So and I would also say Ross Perot was polling higher than 15% way before the election. Then, if you remember, in 1992 he quit.
Out.
Right, he quit. So before he got actually into the debates, when he re-entered, he was only polling at 8%. He ended up getting 19% of the vote in the actual election, which shows you how important those debates are. Yeah.
No, I mean, the idea that today we would only have a choice between the top Republican and the top Democrat is pretty lame. I mean, when you think 43% of people identify themselves as independents,
and also we've done surveys, and thank you, Bill, for mentioning the website, because the surveys are there, that show that 63% of Americans say they would seriously consider an independent voting for an independent for president. So Americans want, as Goldie says, Americans want the choice. They don't necessarily have to vote that way. They may want to vote for the Democratic or the Republican candidate, but they'd like a choice. Yeah. And why should they be denied the choice?
It makes sense to me. ChangeTheRule.org. All right, Goldie, you're on board?
I'm on board.
I'm on board.
Makes perfect sense.
James Glassman, thanks for raising the flag. We'll salute it.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
good
you,
to
Bill.
see you both.
Okay.
Goldie, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you
Come
for
back
having
again
me.
soon. All right, we'll see you, and I'll be back with a quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect. and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, I want to start a new campaign today. Marilyn Mosby for president. Yeah, forget Elizabeth Warren, forget Bernie Sanders, forget Martin O'Malley. Marilyn Mosby for president. Of course, look, I'm just kidding about the president thing, but I'm not kidding about this. She is a rock star, the state prosecutor for Baltimore City, and just what the city and what this country needed. We've seen so many cases of foot dragging and denial from government officials when it comes to police abuse. Nobody expected anything different from Baltimore, and then she stepped forward. The speed with which she acted, the determination, the conviction, and the evidence with which she acted were a real tour de force. At last we knew that somebody we could trust was in charge, somebody we could trust to deliver justice in the murder of Freddie Gray at the hands of police officers. Marilyn Mosby, job well done. We salute you. We thank you. That's it for today, folks. Come back and see us again tomorrow.
This is the Bill Press Show.